The Chicago Bulls are 33 games into the NBA season. And while at the start of the season, we heard that there was a 35-game evaluation period that this front office wanted to do about where this Bulls roster is. Now, in today's episode, I want to talk about the early expectations and predictions for the Chicago Bulls and how they're shaping up and lining up with that already. I also want to talk about where the Bulls have kind of exceeded some expectations so far this season and who has stood out the most and how the development of the young players is going as well. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to start off talking about this, right? How the Bulls season is shaping up. Coming into the season, a lot was made about the Chicago Bulls being predicted to win between 27.5 and 28.5 games by most major outlets. When we look at Yahoo Sports, for example, they had the over-under on the Chicago Bulls at 27.5. It's physically saying that the Bulls need to lose or they will lose their draft pick. Take the under on the Chicago Bulls. That was their quote when it came into the season for the Chicago Bulls. And so far, the Bulls right now are currently on pace to win 37 games, which puts them about 10 games above Yahoo Sports prediction and about 9 games above the predictions that were generally by a lot of betting sites. My personal prediction for the Chicago Bulls coming into the season was between 30 and 35 wins. So the Bulls are even exceeding that expectation that I have for the team as well. And it's really doing so by pace, right? Like, I still think that the Bulls offense is missing some refinement in certain areas of the game as far as, of course, defense. We already know that this team is a terrible defensive team. And then half-court creation, we kind of fell at a lot of times as well in that half-court creation for the Bulls. But one of the things that the Bulls are leading for is pace. They actually really expected that to be the case coming into the season. Billy Donovan talked about the importance of pace, right? Importance of maybe even players not playing 10 or 11 or more than 10 or 11 minute stretches because of how quick they want to move. They're going to have to get guys out of there. They wanted to take advantage, play faster than teams. And that's really been kind of the biggest factor with this Bulls team right now, right? Is they are winning games off pace and three-point shooting. Unfortunately, they're losing some games off three-point shooting as well because we just lack the necessary creation at times. Now, things have started trending in a much better place, right? With Coby White and Josh Giddey playing better, we're driving to the lane a little bit more. Our drives per game have started going up closer to 60, right? So it's really good when it comes down to that. And so the Bulls are working on that, right? They're trying to get that thing together for the Chicago Bulls. But what are some of the biggest reasons that the Bulls are exceeding the preseason expectations? I think one of the things you got to look at for is the performance of the veterans, right? And Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. Vuce right now is averaging 20.6 points per game on shooting splits of 56% from the field and 45% from three-point range. He's also averaging 10 rebounds and a 66% true shooting percentage, which is the highest mark in efficiency of his career. Nikola Vucevic is having a huge impact for the Chicago Bulls team. And, you know, I always love it when Vuce plays well because I think for so long, so much of the Bulls fan base blamed a lot of the Bulls struggles on just Nikola Vucevic. And I think we're seeing now, personally, I feel like this, like I'm not saying that this is like the objective of what the numbers are telling us, but Vuce is really benefiting now from that extra space that's there because DeMar DeRozan isn't like him and DeMar occupy the same spaces. They like to start their offense from the same paces. I was talking about that for so long with that last version of the Bulls team, and I really think that this is pointing to we could have been getting this version of Vuce for the last 3 years. And yeah, he was inefficient from three, but I think part of the reason he was inefficient from three is because he got turned into a jump shooter, something that we're seeing right now as well with Coby White, but that's a story for another day. But I think now that you're seeing that, like Nikola Vucevic, when he's on the court, we're scoring 3.8 points more per 100 possessions. That is the highest mark of his Chicago Bulls team. We have always been negative. Since he's been here, we have scored less points when he was on the court than when he was off the court. And I think that comes down to players have to get in rhythm. And that's one thing that I have an issue with Billy Donovan's coaching is that he kind of forces players in a role. And then when things don't go that way, they're turning into a role player, and it may not fit the way that they need to get in rhythm. So, that's that aspect of it. We're also a better effective field goal shooting team of a 4% when Vooch is on the court as well. We already know the rebounding rate is gonna go up tremendously when he's on the court, right? But then the things that are still negative when Vooch is on the court, opposing teams are still scoring 7 points more per 100 possessions when they're on the court, which unfortunately also is the highest mark of his career here with the Chicago Bulls. So while Vooch is having a really good offensive impact, and even now I think that Vooch is hitting way more big shots than what he hit before more consistently, the defensive aspect for him is still a net negative, but I think it's a little bit less with this team. Like, it was more glaring on the previous version of Bulls teams with Vooch because we were usually such a good defensive team, other than last season when we dropped to 21st in defensive efficiency, that now because we're just a bad defensive team, it's kind of less glaring, but there's still that side of it. But then as well as, like, you can't overlook Zach LaVine as well. 22 points per game on 49% shooting from the field, basically 50%, because it's 49.9%, and 44% shooting from three-point range. He's averaging 4.6 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and he's also shooting 63% true shooting, which again is the highest mark of his NBA career. And that is what you really love to see, that Vooch and Zach are now kind of playing more free. And I've talked about it before. Our half-court offense really comes down to these two guys, right? Josh Giddey's creating in the half-court as well. Lonzo has an impact on that as well. But that is really what you're seeing. They are a huge reason of why the Bulls have been able to stay afloat and exceed expectations this season. That is part of the reason why you see Bulls fans so adamantly plant their flag in we got to move these guys so we can keep the top 10 pick. More on that later. But so that's a big reason why. And I think the season that these guys are having, they're putting up great numbers. Vooch is offensively one of the best centers in the NBA. Defensively leaves a lot, but also he's one of the best double-double guys in the NBA. And these guys are having great performances for the Bulls so far this season. And then you got to look at, okay, so that's a big reason of why we're exceeding expectations. How are the Bulls doing on some of the bigger questions coming into the season? And I only have two here. There were some big questions overall that I think we got answered, right? How bad is the team going to be defensively? One of the worst in the NBA. That was one of the questions that I had coming into the season. That's answered. It is what it is. But one of the bigger questions that still does not have an answer yet is how are Coby White and Josh Giddey going to work as a backcourt? Now, if you would have asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have been saying it's an adamant failure. Now, the fact that you've given me a week to process this and a week in which these guys are starting to play better, right? We talked about Josh Giddey's growth defensively. He's killing it right now defensively. We're talking about Coby White, and he's starting to find his rhythm because he's getting back to attacking rather than just becoming a jump shooter. And so because of that, I'm going to still say that it's a work in progress now, but admittedly, I would have said that it's an outright failure 2 weeks ago. And this is why you check in over the course of the season, right? I always like to say this. When I do videos, when you do topics like this, you got to do it in stages, right? There's the initial stage. How's it looking now? You do a mid-season check-in. And then, of course, we evaluate on it at the end of the season and see, all right, exactly how it all shook out, right? So the Josh Giddey, Coby White backcourt is still a work in progress, as I think these guys are still trying to figure out how. I think coaches are still trying to figure out how to use them, but I also think they're starting to find their balance. And they got disrupted by injuries and things like that on, all right, the give and take, right? Where am I going to attack? Where am I going to dish? Same thing for Coby and Josh Giddey. How hot can Coby get, right? How much in rhythm is he scoring? So that's something that we still got to look out for. We don't have an adamant answer yet, but I will say, even though I won't give it a full answer, it's still kind of trending towards maybe not working out, but I'm going to trust these players, both young guys, especially Josh Giddey, and they can adapt, right? When you look at Coby, some of the biggest knocks on him so far is shooting consistency, which has not been consistent at all this season, right? He needs to be more consistent. The defense has been a problem for him. And I will say this, Coby White hasn't handled the pressure really well either. Coming into this season, people were questioning if Coby White could make the leap to being an all-star this year, right? Based off how well he played last year, the fact that he was second in most improved player voting, and so far, he's not made that leap, right? Coby White has not made that next leap that people were hoping for with how his season finished. Now, I do think there are reasons for that because he's had to adapt, play a whole new role, basically playing a whole new style in how he gets his shots. But also, his inefficiencies are one of the biggest glaring things there. Because even with all of that, he's still averaging 18 points per game. If he was more efficient, we could easily be seeing Coby White averaging 20, 21 points per game. He's shooting 42% from the field, which is the lowest mark since his second year in the league. That's like, so I mean, that's something there, right? He's shooting 35% from three, which has actually gone up some over the last few weeks. But again, a struggle there. Not the 37% he shot the last 2 seasons. So, that's a question there, right? He is taking more at 8.5, but you got that question there. So, that's still going on for Coby. Those are things that he needs to work on. And if we see those things tighten up, it can really change the way that I feel about this backcourt. And Josh Giddey, I think Josh Giddey, the biggest knock on him is of course defense, which again, I pointed out, we went over the numbers. Go back to that video if you need a refresher. But Josh Giddey is quietly putting together a really, really good month of December. Well, December's over with now. It's new year, right? A really good month of December defensively. Now, how can he maintain that for a longer? If he can do that again in January, I think we may have to change the narrative on Josh Giddey and his defense. But I think confidence is one of the biggest things here with Josh Giddey. I always call him a confidence player, and I think that's a big thing. And I think that, coaching hasn't always done the best by him either, confidence-wise. But if Josh Giddey can maintain a level of confidence, and he's 22 years old, right? So that may not be there. But I think that we'd see a very different Josh Giddey consistently in that case. But let me know what you guys think on that. And then the next thing up is that we knew that coming into the season, development, right? And while Ayo Dosunmu, who's out right now with injury, he started off with a slump. He's right back up to basically what he was last year. One of the 3 key players that we're looking at developmental wise, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, and Buzelis. And how have the Bulls done in the development of those guys? And really, honestly, it's been a mixed bag. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. It's good that they're getting out on the court, right? And it's good that they are part of the rotation. And I can see each player has made a step in different areas of their game. But the bigger question that remain here isn't just can they develop. With more minutes, you're going to get hopefully more production from any player in the NBA. It's the NBA, right? But the thing is that have these guys started showing that they can be a big part of the Bulls' future? And that's where it starts becoming a mixed bag. Buzelis, he's definitely a big part of the Bulls' future. We're not even going to play that game. He is. Now, after some initial really good play in December, he's kind of tapered off some, right? Now, he's averaging 16.5 minutes in the month of December. That's up from 12.9 in November, and that was up from 5.6 in October. So he is being trusted more, and that's cool. That's great, right? In the month of December, he averaged 6.6 points per game. He did that on 36% shooting from the field and 36% shooting from 3. 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.5 blocks almost per game. So it's a mixed bag. But again, as a rookie, 20 years old, it's going to be that his minutes aren't consistent. We don't call plays for him. But, Buzelis, when you watch him play, you see that dog mentality. You see the defensive growth as well. The timing of the game is starting to get in line for him. He's adjusted to the physicality of the game. And those block shots are starting to really become a weapon for him as well. So, the development's been there. But then you look at the guys who've been in the NBA before. Julian Phillips is coming, he's in his second year now, and he did deal with the injury for a little while there. On the season, though, he's averaging around 13 minutes per game, so he's been consistently played, right? And the thing with Julian is that when you look at the month-to-month for him, it's basically all the same. 4.6 points in October, 4.3 in November, 5 points in December. So, there's that. 14 minutes so far in the month. Well, December's over again. 14 minutes in the month of December. He's shooting the ball 42% from the field as well. But Julian Phillips, injury can kind of derail a player and their progression a little bit. But I would say this: the question still with Julian is he really a better shooter? Right? Like the shot motion looks good. He plays some solid defense at times. He rotates good. He can switch on defenders good and stay with them for a couple of good possessions. But there's still big questions on Julian and exactly what his role is. Dalen, I think when you look at Dalen Terry, for me, he's definitely improved. He's definitely gone from a player that didn't look like they can stay on the NBA court to a player that I'd say he can stay on the NBA court. And right now, the thing that Dalen is bringing or potentially brings for the team, and that, what is he best at? And that's the question that I have for Dalen. But that also could end up being one of Dalen's strengths. He's a Swiss Army knife. And you see some of that potential for Dalen. It's just that it hasn't necessarily been as consistent yet. So that's the question for Dalen Terry is, what is his role? What is he going to be best at? And how consistently can he do those things? For Julian, it's defense and shooting, right? That's what the role that he's trying to bring in. Of course, for Buzelis, it's everything. But I think an important part of this is that the evaluation of these 3 young players and how the Bulls see them. Because keep in mind, if the Bulls are planning on keeping this team the same, the only way you really increase and improve at that point is your young players developing. Because again, the Bulls haven't been a free agent destination. We don't really have the assets to swing a major trade. So you're looking for these young guys to really, really, really develop. And I can't say that of course, Modest is a rookie. It's different. But I can't say that Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry have improved in a way yet to where I'm saying that this is enough of a young core with this roster that as they grow and develop, that we're going to be okay because they're going to be able to develop as the other guys are declining. And that's an important evaluation piece. And if the Bulls should try to keep their top 10 pick or not. Now, again, we could talk about the evaluation of it. Doesn't mean that the Bulls front office is actually going to do it, which is another conversation for another day. But it does seem like they're growing, and I don't want to knock them, right? They are developing, and you can see the areas in their game that they're developing. But I can't say that they've done enough to where it's like, okay, yeah, we're cool that we don't have a draft pick because these young guys that we have on our team have played so well. They've been important parts of Bulls in some of the Bulls wins, right? And I want to be fair in stating that. And it could very well go. Listen, we're only 33 games into an 82-game season. We still have a lot of games left to be played. And because of that, you can very well see, hey, listen, let's keep giving them time. They've showed a base. Now let's build off of that. But I think that's it. While we're talking about trading Vooch, trading Zach, what happens here, what happens there, one of the biggest things that I'm looking at this front office is that, all right, if you lose this draft pick, do you have the young base that is going to be good enough, right? And you need those players. And if you don't have that, are you going to be aggressive enough in going out and getting what you need out in the trade or the free agent market? And we have doubts about that. But I don't want to make this a trade video. I don't want to make this a video on keeping the top 10 pick or not. I want to make this more of an evaluation period when it comes down to it. And that's just, listen, at this part of the season, looking ahead, right, the Bulls have exceeded the predictions for them. I won't necessarily say they've exceeded expectations because, I mean, we didn't expect much. But looking ahead and going into the season, it's still that, will the Bulls keep exceeding or will they fall back down to earth? Now, they do have the 28th easiest schedule. The second easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. If I figure out how to word things, it is what it is. So they have that. And, that hasn't always given me the most confidence, but we'll see how the Bulls develop over that time. And then, of course, do they try to keep the pick or not? That's really what it comes down to in the remaining part of this season for the Bulls. And we'll see what they do, where they do it, and how well effective they are at doing it. But let me know your guys. Looking ahead into the rest of the season, what do you guys expect this Bulls team to do? Again, not what you want them to do, but what do you think they're going to do, looking and reading how they performed, the development pieces, things like that. Let me know that down below. With that said, last topic of the day, the Bulls do play basketball today. We play basketball against the Washington Wizards actually on the road, and this is a Wizard team that is struggling, right? Now, the Chicago Bulls can't take anything for granted, right? And that's one thing that we've seen with this Bulls team. There is not a single opponent that the Bulls can come in and be like, oh, we're just playing them. They haven't had the luxury of doing that. Now, the Wizards have the worst record in the NBA, right? There's that. They've only won 3 out of the last 10 games. They're the worst defense in the NBA. They're the only defense worse than us. And so the Bulls should be able to come in here, even with missing Ayo Dosunmu. We'll see what happens with Zach and any other players. They should be able to still take care of business. And, that is a dangerous prospect when you have the Bulls because you can't always assume that they're going to take care of business, but the Bulls need to. Feed the big man in Nikola Vucevic. Trust your guards to create for you. That either means Josh Giddey and how he creates open shots and open looks for players, or if that means that Coby White creating by driving and opening lanes for other players. Move without the ball. The continued growth of Patrick Williams is going to be seen there. Patrick Williams is putting together a nice stretch of aggression. And so we want to continue to see how Patrick Williams is going to play in that time. And if you can, great, right? So these are things to watch coming into this game. Listen, the Bulls have been playing some fun basketball. And, they allowed a Charlotte Hornets team without LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller to go on several runs against them and push them into overtime. So you can't, like I said, you can't take anything for granted with this Bulls team. But again, use your pace, hit your shots, play as a team, assist, move the ball around, move without the ball, and be engaged on defense. That has really been a big factor and difference with this team in some of these wins. When they're engaged on the defensive side of the ball, things seem to go the direction that the Bulls need them to go. Can they do it? Will they do it? Those could be two very different questions, but that's what we're looking at in this game for this Bulls team. And I think ultimately as well, like if the Bulls keep winning, right, and of course, that's going to put them out of contention to keeping their top 10 pick. But I will say this, like the way that they're winning and how some of these young players are stepping up in some of that, it brings some promise. And we'll just see how it goes and develops over the course of the season. We'll be watching in it for the only daily podcast here. So keep it going. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.